How do you shoot a scene that feels like a dream, but still keeps you grounded in reality? That's the genius of DP Sam McCurdy, and today he's going to teach us about how he approaches his cinematography.
I like to work with what's there, so that you're not bringing more and more lights onto a set. I will not fill back from the opposite side of camera. The easiest principle to use, I think, on set is, give yourself one key light, give yourself one source, and then work the world from that.
What I really appreciate about Sam is his approach can be applicable to giant Hollywood sets all the way down to intimate documentary shoots. Sam has a unique approach that sets him apart, and he's gonna break that down about how to determine where the main light source is, and then what tools to use to craft your close-up shots and tell the rest of the story in the most compelling way possible without it feeling like an overdone studio shoot. So let's jump into this. Sam, absolute pleasure. So excited to have you on the channel and good to be chatting. I know you've been out scouting all day, so we'll jump right into more filmmaking.
My pleasure, Mark. It's so good to be here. So good to chat to you again.
This specifically for this shot here, breaking this down, this is natural sunlight here coming from the sky. Yes. And then are you adding in, like, is this an ultra bounce? Is that edge light just natural? Like, how did you craft the rest of this?
I think the edge light is natural, but it wouldn't surprise me. So one of the things that is a rule of mine is that, wherever the sun is, that's where the light starts, and there are no lights on the other side. I will not fill back from the opposite side of camera. So that particular frame, I would imagine if we've emphasized that edge light at all, it would have been with a bounce. I'm not a huge fan of ultra bounces. I would probably have an unbleached muzz, or maybe even an unbleached muzz that we've dragged through the dirt a little bit, off to the same side as the sun.
I'm trying to imagine a lot of cinematographers, we get there and we know what it looks like to make a face look good and add backlight. Yes. But when I watch shows of yours, especially like Shogun, there's very minimal backlighting. Or I think of some of the scenes that you shot in a United Kingdom, like in the train, everyone's face was lit different. And it was remarkable. There's times I'm looking at it and I go, by the rules, that's wrong. There's no Rembrandt rule. There's no this. It's like, it's just actually slashing across just the forehead. How do you get to that place that you decide that works? Because it does. And as an audience member, I'm watching it and I'm not thinking that way until I put on my film school nerd hat and I go, whoa, wait a second, Sam.
I think you mentioned a great word there, rules. Although it may not seem it at first, but I'm a huge advocate of rules between myself and not that you make them a big overly known thing to everybody you're working with, but as I go into any project, I try to find a set of rules that I can work with a director, and they become intrinsically important to how you light something. They become really important into where and how you place cameras, which choices you make for lens sizes in any particular situation. Certainly with things like the United Kingdom, a lot of the scenes where we had David and Roz in the same scene, the train coaches, one in particular, is that Amma and I allowed ourselves to lean into the romance a little bit. So we picked Magic Hour, although it was Magic Day with a lot of grip work. We'd lean into golden light coming through the train windows. As you see there, you'd lean into that warmth. You'd lean into that gentleness and softness. Yes, there's a very definite sun coming through from one side, but that doesn't mean, in the romance world, it doesn't mean that there can't be a healthy glow on the other side of the train as well.
Hey, if you're enjoying this with Sam McCurdy, we have a treat for you. We're gonna be doing a live online cinematography workshop with him where he's actually gonna be taking the lighting plots and showing those live and breaking it down, how he lights the sets for Shogun. He should be showing you exactly where he places his lights and what tools he uses. I cannot wait. And this is gonna be open to the public. Normally workshops like this are reserved only for our students in courses like Cinematic Eye, which is part of the Art of Documentary, but we're opening it to the public. So make sure to jump on that list below. The seats will fill up for that workshop really quickly. But we're doing this because we're celebrating 5 years. The doors are reopening for the Art of Documentary, and we just had our 5th year birthday. The last 5 years have been so incredible. We're now at 7 courses, over 8,000 students. But the coolest thing about AOD is seeing the evolution of our students. People came in having never picked up a camera and are now releasing films online and in festivals and having thriving film careers as doc filmmakers. One of our students just hit 1.8 million views on his recent film about hummingbirds, and he's in our Foundations course and the Cinematic Eye. And on September 16th, the doors will be opening for you to join any of our courses. And for that first 48 hours, the courses are on sale. It's an early bird discount price, but you wanna move quickly. There is limited seating for those courses. And when you join AOD, you get lifetime access to any of the future updates for that course. You can watch the videos whenever you want. There are hundreds and hundreds of videos across all of our courses. And we just released a brand new producing course that will be arriving on September 16th as well, called Producing Foundations. If you wanna know more about AOD, head over to our website, go follow us on Instagram, but make sure to get on our wait list so you're the first to know when the doors open. If you're serious about your filmmaking, about your storytelling, about releasing films that have impact and making more money as a filmmaker, AOD is for you. We'll see you on the inside. When I watched you work in the ASC workshop, the first thing you did was you had your gaffers just start throwing tape on the lights there. And it seemed so, not counterintuitive, but wasn't where I was expecting you to start. Can you talk about finding your style as a cinematographer, what that process was like in the idea of shooting it the way you believe?
Such an interesting question. I like to work with what's there so that you're not bringing more and more lights onto a set. You know, I've just found the process of keeping it simple and actually spending more time looking at what's in front of you immediately gives me a better indication of where I want to take the lighting to. Not that I concern myself with the tech, but we're working with cameras that are so sensitive now, working with sensors that are so sensitive now, that yeah, my first gut instinct is to look at a room, at a space, at a location, and try and figure out how I add drama, but how I add drama by taking away the light.
Yeah, help me, I'm trying to put myself in your shoes to build confidence for myself even. If I'm in that environment and the director just says, okay, let's light this. Where are you starting? Are you just like, let's just get my biggest light source punching through that window? Is that where you're starting? And then if it lands hot on like the one person's face, like it did in the wide on the one woman, you're just like, that's okay. And then how are you convincing the team? What's that look like?
I think you and I have chatted about this before, but I love prep. I love the time you spend with a director to understand the emotion of individual scenes. And taking that scene, for example, you know, Amma and I had gone through so much of the script, so much of the story. So with that scene in particular, you know, the scene had been written as, you know, the guys had arrived at Botswana. They were about to meet the English consulate and have this discussion. Amma and I both were like, well, we should shoot it at sunset. So that's where it starts. You know, immediately you're kind of going, okay, let's make that whole scene feel like it's at sunset. And actually when they arrive and then when they leave that train, the sunset then goes into a night sequence where they're watching a movie on an old screen. So already in the prep work that we've done, we've given ourselves a set of rules. The scene is going to be sunset. The schedule doesn't allow for us to shoot, you know, literally 30 seconds every evening at sunset. So we know we're going to have to light it. So in turn with that, you go to the gaffer, you go to the grip and you're saying, look, we need a lot of shade and a lot of powerful lights because at some point in time, we're going to have to fight against the sun and change its direction. And then at a certain point in time, we're actually going to have to mimic the sun because the sun will have gone and we're going to need to soften it to make it feel a little more like sunset.
Where have you been growing recently as a cinematographer? What has been some of the changes in your approach recently?
I think certainly my personal approaches they've come from two sides. One, One is definitely trying to push the narrative, to be as dramatic as you can with the stories that are presented in front of us. I think with some of the more recent productions, I think certainly with something like Smoke that we recently did for Apple, I think there's an honesty in there that I was looking for to kind of recreate. One of the things that Dennis Lehane was a big fan of, and I myself am a big fan of, was that kind of the golden age of Hollywood cinema, that kind of early 70s dirt and grit and noise that I'm a huge fan of. So I was looking for some honesty with that. Although I'm sure a lot of people would go, well, Shogun didn't resemble any of that. But for me, it did. Like so much of Shogun, especially the location work we did on Shogun, was trying to be honest to the locations we were in, the weather we were in. You know, if it's raining or it's misty or it's overcast or...
I was wondering about this. I wanted to bring it up. Can you break this down? You're on a cliff. Do you have just a big 20 by 20 silk above them? Like, what are you doing to pull this off?
We were literally on a cliff edge. We weren't allowed to fly anything quite as big as a 20 by. I think we had a number of kind of 6 bys or 8 bys. Wow. That we would have on stands, or actually some of them hung off trees to soften it as much as possible. And then, as you can see, you know, on the inside of each face, we would put up big negatives, and as the camera got closer and closer, we'd just walk those negatives in closer and closer. The great thing with locations like this, and certainly with actors like Tad and Hero, with incredible faces, that, you know, as a cinematographer, all you want to do is shape. It changed their faces so much that it, you know, like it was a joy to work with. I truly believe that, you know, the easiest principle to use, I think, on set is, you know, give yourself one key light, give yourself one source, and then work the world from that. And, you know, when you're outside, there is only one sun. When you're inside, you pick your principal source. Now, I'm not saying those principal sources won't change as you travel from a room to a room or any of those things. But to add more light to a situation is just making things, I feel, more complex.
For Shogun, what I appreciate about it so much, and maybe why I love the cinematography, is it really makes me feel like you were a documentarian in that world who happened to have some really heavy cameras on some amazing dollies.
Yes.
But you weren't just handheld, but you were so minimal with the setups. And like you said, I guess when I look at the cinematography from that show, is it makes sense to me. I look, oh, here's the sun coming in, and they're in a dojo, and there's no skylight, so there's no backlight. It's just falling off. And to me, I go, yeah, that works. That makes sense. And so does your process, you're literally like, let's get our biggest light, creating the sun, unless the sun's actually there. And then from there, are you just coming in and adding little pieces of light, or what it sounds like you're mostly trying to use the bounces on the key side?
Absolutely. I mean, and I'm sure that both Finn, our key grip, and Dave, the gaffer, would tell you this. I became even in studio, even on sets, I became a very, very, very heavy grip user.
But I think that was the point of your cinematography with Shogun, is with the use of the anamorphics. And I gotta say, I was really impressed how low you went. I don't know if you did that in the grade, but at times the light was so low that I was like, this is bold. I can just always go back to my commercial days when the producers are like, can you brighten it? Can you brighten it? But it looked... You were mentioning the 70s, and I think of films like French Connection that were so gritty and had so much texture. It looked like you were trying to bring that in, and I love that, Sam. You have this beautiful Venice camera, but you're trying to kind of screw up the image, and I mean that in the most polite way.
One of the things that certainly Fred and I talked about, and Justin and I talked about, and we all talked about, was how Shogun felt. And you know, I remember chatting with Chris Ross very, very early on, who shot the pilot, of that feeling that it's almost on paper, you know, that you could actually reach out and kind of, you know, feel
Scrape some
feel
grain
that-
off.
Yeah, exactly. That was that, and I think that was what we really strived for as we came into episode 7. I loved that episode in particular because even by Justin Marks's own admission, he was like, take it to its extremes in episode 7. And I think
Yeah.
what we did in episode 7 allowed Fred and I with episodes 9 and 10 to then really feel the texture of Shogun. And to the point, the final sequence, the trial of Toranaga at the end of 7, we shot it completely the wrong way around. We built the set in this ridiculously open area of British Columbia, but it was surrounded by mountains. Myself and Takeshi and Finn, the key grip, we'd figured out that the sun went behind the mountains at 3:30, between 3:30 and 4 o'clock every day. This scene here, and we didn't want any sunshine in this particular sequence. So we built this set, we covered it for the regular daytime hours. So all of the close-up coverage was shot, between 8 and 3. And then we removed all of the covers and shot everything wider than this. Anything
Wow.
that
So that's why you reversed your coverage. Normally you go wide and go in tight, but this you had to.
Yep.
Well, that's being so creative, just kind of working with what you were given.
And again, it going to what we were talking about before, that the truth of the drama and allowing the light to become the drama. You set this at a nondescript time of day, and suddenly the fire takes on its own life. Suddenly the landscape takes on its own life.
Kind of the 3 steps it sounds like for you is establish where the sun is or the biggest light source, then shoot that wide, and then move in and begin to shape with the least amount of gear possible. Is that, I'm trying to come up with I'm trying to figure out what is the
so
Sam.
simple, Mark.
So simple, right? What's the Sam formula? Is that, if someone's just overwhelmed, because it can be like there's so many ways you can attack something. How are you confidently producing such good work every time you're on set?
It's a commitment to those rules. For somebody with their first script, going through it for the first time with a director, and then they go out, once they've gone through the details of the story, the drama of the story. It's when you first, you go to your first location. It's a house, it's an apartment, it's a whatever. It's deciding how that scene within that apartment or that house, it's deciding how that's meant to feel. And then you say to yourself, okay, can we close the curtains? Can we let less light in? Can we, what are the easiest things without immediately going to, I need 2 18Ks to come through the window. So if you can find a room that's got a north facing window that isn't affected by the sun, go for that one.
Yeah.
Don't go for the one where the levels are going to go up and down every time the sun goes through a cloud. Simple things like that can just help maintain. So you're not working hard on set. You're working sensibly on set, so that your time is spent crafting the scene, not figuring out what you're going to do when the sun goes behind the next cloud.
Well, Sam, I want to be super respectful of your time. I know you got a busy schedule and you've just come off your own scouts and everything. Thank you for this. Thank you for this encouragement. Like I've said, from when I've met you, I've always felt empowered to try new things, to see someone at such an elite level who's taking risks, breaking rules and creating their own. It's refreshing, and it makes me want to keep pushing my craft and not just settle into what I know has worked in the past, but trying stuff
Mark,
that may not work.
It's so kind of you to say. I genuinely, I appreciate this so much. I think, listen, as one cinematographer to another, I think it's important that we enjoy what we do, and it's important that we push ourselves.
Absolutely. We're so big on that in Art of Documentary, wanting to stress that you can't do this by yourself. It's why we created this community. It's why we wanted people to find other filmmakers, whether it's in person or online. It's so important to share that, encourage each other. I think even go through the process of getting feedback on your work and giving feedback is sharing in those insights. It's a muscle. You just can't do this solo. It was never meant to be done that way.
It was never meant to be done that way. It's such a collaborative experience when we're on set.
So Sam, what's really going to be great is we're going to be doing this AOD workshop with you, and so you're going to be bringing some of the lighting plots from some of the episodes in Shogun, showing us kind of what more of your complicated scenes. Is that?
I'll try and describe how you turn something that looks on paper incredibly complex with hundreds and hundreds of lights and turn it into something that is just one source. I'll try and manipulate my way through that.
Amazing. Sam, thank you so much, brother. Appreciate every minute of your time. And
my pleasure, Mark. Always a pleasure.
We can't wait to have you over in person or online, rather, with the AOD community. And
I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah. Make sure, for all of you who are watching this, make sure to jump on that link down below. But thanks again, Sam. We'll be seeing you very soon. Appreciate it.
My pleasure. Can't wait to catch up in a couple of weeks. It's going to be really good fun, Mark.